Metal comes in one side of the factory and rockets go out the other. But it's not just the fact that we design the engines from scratch, with these world-class engineers outside, or the rest of the vehicle, the tanks, the domes, the avionics that go along with it, the software that goes along with it. But it's also all of the other pieces of the operation, the test stands out in Texas, the launch sites in Texas or Florida or California, and all the way to the end customer with the relationship, the sales team, right to the end customer. And so we took that very vertically integrated approach, and we did the same thing again on our satellite connectivity business, where not only do we own the end customer, where you can go to starlink.com and type it in, and a terminal will ship to your house, but we build the terminals and build a whole factory to build those terminals. We obviously launch the satellites, but we also build the satellites and have built a whole factory to produce thousands of satellites a year. And some of that is simply that these capabilities just didn't exist in the industry. If you look at how we do connectivity, we actually have a phased array antenna that used to be, exotic military grade technology. And now we have brought it to, high volume and put it on top of people's homes, and people think, oh, okay. Even though this beam is tracking multiple satellites at a time and adjusting in milliseconds, you and I just think, well, it's great because I don't lose my connection. So I think bringing things that could be rocket science, or special technology into the fold, and then making it mass market and high volume is kind of that secret sauce. And by controlling everything, related to the system, whether it's the launch vehicle or owning both sides of the link, the user terminal and the satellite, or the software around it, we're able to be more efficient, in what we deliver as far as a product. And then the last piece now in AI, I think Amila alluded to it, the fact that we went into AI thinking we clearly have a differentiated, solution, and that we can deliver, data centers in space is a little tough because you get this connotation. It's a big data center. It's actually a satellite constellation in space that delivers AI, but AI compute. But I think, looking at that, we thought, okay, clearly. But then that wasn't really following the same kind of vertically integrated approach that we'd taken in our other businesses. By buying XAI and now having, a frontier model and all the data content from X, which is clearly a differentiation as well, we now have all the way to the end customer. When you and I sign up for Grok, right, we're getting that software solution that's done by SpaceX on our infrastructure as well, and owning that customer relationship to have, full control of the product. Elon's very much a product guy, and I think is one of the innovators of our lifetime, but is always wanting to have, control of the service and product, simply because he wants to make sure that customer experience is the best that it can possibly be. And I love that, and so now we have that in all three of our businesses.
Let's go into the three businesses. So we have decades of mission-driven team of builders working together. Milo, you joke 8 years, you're a newbie. Doesn't feel that way to me. And, leading into just an incredible momentum in 26. And now you're the only business on Earth with space connectivity and AI. How does that platform fit together?
Yeah, what I would tell you is the platform for SpaceX starts with launch, right? It's the fact that we have this launch capability that's never existed, to your point. And so what we're able to do is really look up and identify new market after new market where we can really provide. What's interesting is provide a better service in an existing terrestrial market. If you look at broadband, right, there are broadband ISPs around the world for sure, but there's never been a real global broadband provider because no one's been able to do it from space, right, in a really scaled way to 12 million people in over 160 countries. And we're about to do the same thing again with direct to cell, right, or direct to device, where we can then go to the next 3 or 4 billion people and provide a really differentiated product there as well. But it all and AI for sure that way. And it all starts with the fact that, unless you have access to space in a meaningful way, and in AI, we're talking about wanting to put up, million tons a year, in the years to come. That's the type of thing where you just have to have fully reusable rocketry and this launch platform to be able to go into these markets.
Mm-hmm. We're on our second week now of the IPO Roadshow. And so a few themes had come up. So I'm going to hit you with some of the investor favorite questions on the segment. So let's go to space. Starship, we had test flight 12. What did you learn, and where are we today on the path to reusability of Starship?
Yeah, did you want me?
Go for it.
It was an amazing success. Honestly, I mean, we had we always have high expectations, but I think the test outdid what we expected. Just to make sure everyone knows, this is the first flight of a new generation vehicle, right? So even though the vehicle kind of looks the same as the V2 and V1 did, it's a new vehicle from the inside. It's a new Raptor engines. It's a bunch of changes on the heat shields. It's just like a new vehicle. And it was very successful. Like the ship, you can see it coming down on the videos. I highly recommend everyone watch the video if they haven't, but you see the ship coming down and you see it landing in the Indian Ocean. And people ask us always, well, how do you know that it landed where it's supposed to? Well, we don't have cameras in the whole Indian Ocean. It's pretty big. So we only have cameras where we plan to land the ship, and the fact that, you can see it perfectly. You actually saw the ship does like a little twist, so we can catch the heat shield, a picture of the heat shields at the end. It did everything it was supposed to. So it was a really good success. The Raptor engines, I think 5 out of the 6 worked the whole time back. The heat shield survived, right? That's why the vehicle was able to come down. So it was a really, really big success for us as a company. In terms of next steps, we've caught the booster, which is the bottom part. Starship kind of has 2 parts, the booster and the ship. We've caught the booster twice and we've reflown it already too. We have not caught a ship yet, right? So the big next step this year will be obviously catching a booster again, but we've done it. It'll be catching the ship with the kind of chopstick arms that we have in our towers. And then after that, we'll be reflying the ship because then you get to what some of our engineers call the holy grail of rocketry, right? When we proved first stage landing back in December 2015, that was like step 1 in that journey. And then landing the second stage, which goes much deeper into space and then comes back, that, once we're able to do that, it's like holy grail of rocketry. After that, doing orbital refueling, so for us to launch our Starlinks or our AI compute satellites, you just go into LEO and come back. You don't need any refueling. To go to the moon or go to Mars one day, you actually need to put more fuel because leaving your Earth's atmosphere is actually the most highest gravitational pull. So we will need to do orbital refueling to be able to escape or to go to the moon or Mars. That's kind of after reflying a second stage. That will be the big next step. And then, there's a million other things we will do, and we are never done. And we have the next version of Starlink and the version of Kit, etc. But I think those 3 things are kind of the big things to look out for in the next 12 months.
Let's do one more on space. And as everyone heard, you can watch these launches online. Even better, go to Texas, go to Florida, go to Vandenberg. You can watch them. But we're actually not that far off from people going to the moon. Tell us about the lunar economy and what you envision for that.
Can you
go for it?
Sure. We're super excited about everything that will be built on the moon. There's the obvious stuff, like all of us want to go to the moon. I promised my daughter her 20th birthday will be on the moon, so I gotta get working on that.
Yeah.
She's 4, so I have some time. But just people going to the moon, people going to LEO. But then I think the big opportunity is what we will build on the moon and why it will be so much more efficient, cheaper, and faster to do it there. I think everyone just saw the video. Right at the end of the video, you see kind of things shooting off from the moon. So we plan to have full production of our satellites on the moon. Obviously, initially with Optimus robots, then with people like us. I think there's going to be really interesting use cases in healthcare, right? Doing healthcare, both research and then drug development outside of gravity allows you to move much faster than on Earth. That's why a lot of research today is actually done. Health research is done at the ISS, right? But the ISS full ISS inside is the size of one Starship. So just imagine what kind of, cancer breakthrough and all other types of drug breakthrough we'll be able to do when we can have hundreds of Starships on the moon very easily. I think manufacturing and production, like semiconductor production outside of, again, gravity will be really helpful and way more efficient. So there's really no reason to recreate good chunks of the economy up on the moon. And that's, sometimes when people ask us how we think about the future, like I think we're really just getting started, right? Because we've kind of built the foundation with launch and with the satellite, with the 10,000+ satellites in space that enable us to do all these next set of things on the moon. And then, by the way, on Mars as well. Moon's closer, so we'll do moon first, but Mars is the mission, right? So after the moon, we're going to do all the things I just described on another planet.
Mm-hmm. Let's do the top question then on connectivity. So we spoke about bringing 3 billion people on this planet online, which has a very profound and tremendous impact. Big growth areas for this segment include your mobile capabilities, and you've bought Spectrum to address that, in addition to the enterprise and government opportunity. So can you talk about those growth drivers for the connectivity business?
Sure. I think both of those are really critical if you think about where the connectivity business is going in the next couple of years. It's interesting, when a business typically gets to this point in the life cycle, they've already gotten to their mature stage. We're nowhere close to that. And that's kind of what's wild about SpaceX. You could look at each of our segments, and the growth drivers are about to happen. Actually, in the space segment, we are in essence on a path to obsolete the most efficient rocket ever built in Falcon with Starship, right? And bring in that fully reused full reuse capability. And on connectivity, it's actually the fact that on the broadband side, really for the first, we started in 2020, right? So for the first at least 3 years, we didn't really talk that much about enterprise and government because, we launched our service the first year talking about it being better than nothing service, for people that really had no connectivity. But that was just to kind of prove out the concept on the consumer side and, genuinely help people, that had nothing before and have the product get better and better as we put more and more satellites into space. And sure enough, that's exactly what happened. And now you look at the last couple of years and, we have gotten to the point where we're 3 nines of reliability. We're able to provide, SLAs or service level agreements, and we're at the tier 1 of enterprise quality at this point. And so now you see our enterprise and government solutions ramping significantly to the point that I wouldn't be surprised if our enterprise and government portion from a revenue perspective passes our consumer portion of the business in the next couple of years. So that I think is really compelling because now, if you're a CIO, CTO, and you're looking at your network strategy for your company almost across the entire gambit of enterprise, why wouldn't you have Starlink in there? Why would you ever put yourself at risk of being the one that gets poked at and said, well, if you just had Starlink on there, we wouldn't have gone down, guys. If you look at the undersea cable in the Red Sea being cut, right, that was an aha moment to many industries, especially the financial services sector, as you guys know, where you can't be moving trillions of dollars around the globe and all of a sudden something like that happens and your whole network breaks down. It should be that, Starlink takes care of that connectivity. You don't worry about it. Or if there's natural disasters or for some reason, some strip of water called Hormuz, becomes a blocker. It isn't a blocker anymore, right? And so I think those, those things are coming to the forefront, right away. And then, of course, there's all the mobility side of aviation and maritime and automotive and trains and, cruise ships where, obviously terrestrial solutions were never going to be able to do that. And being able to bring like top tier broadband solutions. We're going to be able to sit on a United Airlines flight or now an American Airlines flight or so many others. Actually, I want to be fair to all those other great other airlines that are, internationally being able to allow us to travel all over the globe now and have Starlink, and not worry about connectivity anymore. And so I think that's really been a magical piece that's just happened in the last couple of years. And it's just getting started from a growth perspective. And then the other piece that you talked about, direct to cell or direct to device, for years and years, it was kind of a battle, especially in the US, where, the difference between the three operators was what famous actor are they putting on TV for their ads, or what's the iPhone subsidy. We're about to bring an actual differentiated product for you and I to talk about related to, well, I want to switch to Starlink Mobile because that one has global roaming and doesn't have any dead zones. And I can go out, into the desert or climb up a mountain and I still have all of my services and full 5G quality service. That's pretty special. And I think when we roll that out in the near term here in the next 2 years, that will be a game changer for the entire, I would say mobility sector. And my guess has become table stakes for everybody else where they have to come up with a solution also. But more importantly, I think for us, it's great for the consumer, right? It's, if towers go down or something happens, like it has fire, flood, whatever you want to say, now you're still connected. Now you can call for help, or you can let your loved ones know that you're okay. Like, these are things that, I think people have always wanted and they just thought wasn't possible. And so I think that's, more than anything else, what's great about it is it's a significant opportunity. I mean, if you talk about, just annual TAM, or total addressable market, of between those two portions of the connectivity business, about $1.6 trillion a year, that part's great financially. But I think it's also the fact that both of those businesses are going to bring great services in attacking terrestrial markets that exist today on Earth. But because we're doing it from space, we end up with a product that's just better for everybody.
We'll do a question on AI as we wrap up here. So orbital AI, misunderstood, obviously, an incredibly audacious idea. Miley, you said competitors looked at your rocket, said that's not a real rocket. And you already said, look, these aren't buildings floating around in orbit. So what makes SpaceX uniquely positioned to build that infrastructure in space and build the AI infrastructure layer in space?
You want to take it?
Sure. I mean, it's of all the things we worry about, it's not the highest one on our list. And Elon actually we just today published a technical review of the AI sats, I think literally 2 hours ago, where Elon is going through it. But when you think what you need, to have hundreds of thousands of AI compute sats in space, you need, one, the ability to launch many, many times, because however big the satellites are, you will need a lot for hundreds of thousands of them in space. B, you need the ability to build satellites very efficiently and very fast and very, very cheap. So we've done both 1 and 2 already, right? Like, we've launched 650 plus times. We have built 10,000 plus satellites. The difference between the satellites for our next gen satellites just for communication, so what we've, a version of what we've done 10,000 plus times, and then the AI compute satellites, it's very minimal. There's a lot of technical, a lot of technical stuff. I got to say, our engineers, are working on it. But at the end of the day, you take off the comms, like everything that's related to communications from the comm satellites. You put in a slightly different radiator and slightly larger solar panels, and that's the main difference. Well, we've built solar panels 10,000 times. We've built radiators so many times. So the demand for SpaceX, or the expectation of SpaceX to do this, I think we can do this. We're we have done it in different verticals already. I think if you were to ask me, how could someone else do such an audacious goal? I think it's close to impossible, right? Because you would have to have launch, and you would have to have the ability and the know-how to manufacture at scale, satellites at scale, which about 2/3 to 75%, depending what estimates you believe, of satellites in orbit are SpaceX satellites at this point. So we have launched more our own satellites than truly anyone, including nation states in the world. So I think we're very uniquely positioned to tackle AI compute in the next, 2 to 3 years. You will start seeing us put up really meaningful wattage into space.
So thank you for that. We're gonna close with a question about individual investors, which is why we're here in this room and on the roadshow. Brett, you made a comment that stuck with me some time back, that going public has a lot of benefits. One of the downsides is you don't have a personal relationship with everybody on your cap table
Right.
anymore, and that's just not going to be possible. And so for the thousands of individuals who are watching today, and broadly for the millions who are going to come in and be owners now of SpaceX, what do you have to say to them about investing in this company and in this mission?
I think more than anything else, I think it's really great actually to be able to bring something like this to, I would say, everybody that we can, because this is, in the fundamentals, this is the future. If you were to think about what industries, when you think, well, the future is going to be this or that, the fact that we are an industry leader by a lot in space, which, for sure is the future of humanity, and an industry leader in connectivity where not just, your cell phone or broadband, but when you think about all the other devices that will soon be, including robots and autonomous vehicles and all these other things that will need to be connected, connectivity will be more and more critical as you move out in time. And now AI, and the fact that it's a very diversified AI business where we can host others, as we already demonstrated with, tens of billions a year type contracts that we just signed in the last 2 months, but can host others, can also, provide a consumer product with what we think is really the truth-seeking AI solution. And on the enterprise side, as we ramp to having what we think will be one of the premier enterprise, software solutions, I think it's pretty special on all those fronts. And that's really what you want. You want to find a business where there's a tremendous amount of growth ahead, and you have a lot of conviction about where the company's going. And so I think we offer that. Wonderful.
Well, Mila, Brett, on behalf of all of the Morgan Stanley clients who joined us today, we really appreciate you taking time at this very special moment to speak to everyone.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. Thank you.